In early April 2009, Detroit, Alicia Wayne, 32, nurse at the St. Mary Clinic, left for her morning shift at approximately 4 o'clock. She walked from her apartment building to the parking lot adjacent to the rear exit. According to her later statement, a masked man approached from behind, forced her to the ground, and assaulted her. She reported that the attacker spoke little, acted with confidence, and left within minutes. She reached home in a distressed condition. Her husband, Darius Wayne, 48, owner of a small butcher shop and former Army serviceman, contacted emergency services. Detective Leonard Dawson of the Detroit Police Department was assigned as lead investigator. During his initial interview with Alicia, Dawson focused on her employment, asking about her access to clinic documents, administrative routines, and staff conflicts. Darius later noted that Dawson's questions centered more on Alicia's workplace than on details that could identify the attacker. Police collected biological samples, but the resulting DNA profile did not match any individual in state systems. Officers attempted to locate potential witnesses in surrounding buildings, but no one reported seeing the assault. Cameras installed near the parking lot were described by maintenance staff as non-operational. Over the next several weeks, Alicia's condition deteriorated. She stopped attending work, drank heavily, and avoided contact with colleagues. Darius attempted to reopen communication with the police department, but he reported receiving limited updates. In May 2009, he hired a private investigator, Anthony Tony Galvez, 51, former security consultant. Tony conducted background inquiries on St. Mary Clinic personnel and discovered that within the previous 2 years, multiple nurses had left the facility under abrupt circumstances. One nurse, 29-year-old Heather Pitts, had left Michigan without notifying co-workers, and her family reported losing contact with her. Tony traced another former nurse, Tiara Hale, 34, to a rented apartment in Toledo, Ohio. During an interview, Tiara stated she resigned after being pressured to manipulate patient files. She alleged that the clinic leadership, Chief Physician Dr. Malcolm Rice and Administrator Daniel Griffin, submitted fraudulent billing to insurance providers for unperformed procedures. According to Tiara, nurses who questioned the process were threatened. She also described an assault on a colleague who had refused to continue falsifying data. The nature of the assault resembled Alicia's incident. In June 2009, Darius confronted Detective Dawson outside the police station, demanding clarity on the stalled case. Dawson responded by identifying a suspect, Derek Wilson, 30, an orderly at the clinic. Dawson stated that Wilson had a record of workplace misconduct and was connected to Griffin as an unofficial problem solver. Darius proceeded independently. Later that week, he entered Wilson's apartment during the tenant's absence. Inside a storage box, he located jewelry items, photographs of several women, and a notebook containing descriptions of assaults carried out on instruction. Among the items was Alicia's missing bracelet. One photograph showed Wilson at a bar with Detective Dawson. The date written on the back indicated the meeting occurred 1 week before Alicia's assault. Darius interpreted this as proof that Dawson's involvement was more extensive than suggested. He brought the evidence to Alicia. On reviewing the photograph and the notebook, she refused to contact federal authorities, stating that her sister had received direct threats from unknown callers. She told Darius, "We lost," then isolated herself further. In early July 2009, Darius contacted Derek Wilson under the pretext of offering him part-time work at the butcher shop. When Wilson arrived, Darius incapacitated him using a sedative solution prepared on site. He secured Wilson in a back room and recorded a video interrogation. In the recording, Wilson admitted to assaulting Alicia and 2 other nurses. He named Dr. Rice and Daniel Griffin as individuals who arranged payment for such acts. When Darius confronted him about the photograph with Dawson, Wilson laughed and stated, "The detective is part of this. Griffin handles paperwork. The one who controls everything is the one with law enforcement authority." Wilson then claimed that Griffin had dispatched another man to Alicia at that moment. Darius left the shop and returned home. The apartment was in disarray. Alicia had injuries consistent with physical assault. A man holding a knife stood near her. Darius engaged him physically and killed him. He later stated he acted without identifying the individual. Darius returned to the butcher shop, where he killed Wilson and dismembered the body, using his professional equipment. Alicia, in shock, contacted police, but reported only that Darius was harming someone at his workplace. She provided the shop's address. Responding officers found remains consistent with Wilson in the back room. Darius was arrested on site. Detective Dawson arrived shortly after the arrest. He informed Darius that the man killed in the apartment was not an attacker but Marcus Reed, 20 years old, hired as a courier. Reed had been delivering $50,000, allegedly from Griffin, intended as a payment to Alicia. According to Dawson, Reed had no prior involvement in violent acts. Darius understood he had killed an uninvolved individual. The fun was just beginning. The trial began in October 2009 in Wayne County. Darius Wayne faced two primary charges: first-degree murder of Derek Wilson, with aggravating factors related to torture and post-mortem mutilation, and involuntary manslaughter in the death of 20-year-old Marcus Reed. Prosecutor Jennifer Cross outlined the state's position, emphasizing premeditation regarding Wilson and reckless disregard for life in the case of Reed. The prosecution sought life imprisonment without parole for the Wilson charge and consecutive sentencing for Reed's death. The defense submitted the recorded confession obtained by Darius in the butcher shop. In the video, Wilson admitted to multiple assaults and stated that Detective Leonard Dawson was the individual overseeing operations inside the clinic. The court rejected the recording on the basis that it had been obtained during unlawful restraint and was inadmissible under state evidentiary rules. The judge directed the jury to disregard all references to the video. Detective Dawson was called as a witness for the prosecution. He testified that he had conducted a thorough investigation into Alicia Wayne's assault and denied any knowledge of his brother Daniel Griffin's involvement in fraudulent activity at St. Mary Clinic. Regarding Derek Wilson, Dawson stated that he had encountered Wilson only in passing during routine visits to the clinic. When the defense presented the photograph showing Dawson and Wilson together at a bar, Dawson responded that he did not recall the event and suggested that the image was either manipulated or taken during an incidental gathering. A disruption occurred when the prosecution reported that Daniel Griffin had not appeared at work on the morning before his scheduled testimony. A welfare check conducted at his residence found the home vacant and personal possessions missing. Authorities listed him as a missing person. Detective Dawson stated on the stand that he had no contact with Griffin, and reiterated that Marcus Reed was only a courier transporting a bribe intended for Alicia. Dawson stated that Reed had no role in threats or assaults. Alicia Wayne testified. She confirmed that she had agreed to accept the $50,000 payment and leave the state to avoid further pressure. She stated that when Marcus Reed entered the apartment, he was cutting a sealed envelope to verify the contents before handing it to her. She reported that Darius entered, saw an unknown man with a knife, and reacted without hesitation. Alicia said, "I called the police because I was afraid of my husband, not Marcus, not Griffin. I was afraid of what Darius had become after the assault and everything that followed. He killed Marcus without asking who he was. I thought he might kill me next if he believed I was on the wrong side." The medical examiner testified that Reed's wounds were consistent with a physical struggle initiated by Darius, and that Reed's only weapon was a utility knife consistent with package handling. The examiner confirmed that $50,000 was found in Reed's pocket, and that no evidence suggested Reed posed an immediate threat to Alicia. In closing arguments, Darius admitted to killing Reed in error and stated that he accepted responsibility. The jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. The judge imposed life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 10 years, citing the severity of Wilson's killing and the irreversible consequences of Reed's death. Before Darius was transported from the courtroom, Dr. Malcolm Rice arrived in a wheelchair. He requested to testify further. Rice stated that Griffin had overseen the financial component of the fraudulent scheme, but had no authority over violent acts. Rice reported that after Darius's arrest, an unidentified individual attempted to kill him, resulting in the injuries that left him paralyzed. He also stated that threats were made against Alicia Wayne during that period. Rice looked directly at Detective Dawson and said, "Griffin handled the accounts, but Derek Wilson did not take orders from him. Someone with authority inside the system directed him. Someone who could ensure that cases were closed. I do not know the name, but I know it was a police officer, and he is still active." When Darius Wayne entered Jackson Correctional Facility in late 2009, he was assigned to an orientation unit for new inmates. On his first day, a 19-year-old prisoner approached him during the midday break. The young man identified himself as Isaiah Reed. younger brother of Marcus Reed, the courier Darius had killed in July. Isaiah stated that Marcus had been forced into the courier role after receiving threats from individuals connected to Daniel Griffin. He thanked Darius, saying that although Marcus had been drawn into the scheme, Darius's actions had ended Marcus's involvement in what Isaiah described as a cycle of coercion. Isaiah said he was incarcerated on a charge he claimed was fabricated, arranged by someone attempting to eliminate loose ends. He concluded with, "My name is Isaiah. I want justice for my brother and for my family." In the following months, Darius and Isaiah developed a close association. Darius advised Isaiah on safety issues inside the prison and intervened during several disputes involving other inmates. Isaiah, who had entered the system with little understanding of prison hierarchies, adapted under Darius's guidance. Staff records later noted that Darius avoided major infractions during his first years, though he was documented as having a stabilizing influence on Isaiah's behavior. Detective Leonard Dawson visited the facility twice during 2010 and several times in the following years. Dawson requested private conversations with Darius under the pretext of discussing appeals. During these meetings, Dawson urged Darius to testify about corruption in the department, without identifying himself or his involvement. Dawson suggested that Darius could receive a reduced sentence by cooperating, but Darius repeatedly declined. Over time, Darius observed Dawson's demeanor shifting. The detective became tense, spoke in shorter phrases, and demonstrated visible anxiety about unnamed risks. Prison logs confirm that Dawson's visits grew more frequent between 2012 and 2014. During Darius's first 2 years of incarceration, he received monthly letters from Alicia. Her messages contained expressions of regret and emotional strain, but she made it clear she could not reconcile with him. She acknowledged the harm she had experienced and wrote that she hoped he would eventually find clarity. After 2 years, the letters stopped. In 2014, the prison chaplain approached Darius and informed him that Alicia was deceased. The official cause was an overdose of prescription medication. A brief message found near her body stated that she couldn't live with what he did. Darius did not request a private grieving period and continued his daily routine without outward reaction. By 2018, 1 year before Darius's parole eligibility, Dawson visited the prison again. Records show that he appeared significantly weakened and moved slowly. He told Darius he had late-stage cancer and limited time remaining. He added that his brother, Daniel Griffin, remained alive under an unknown identity and communicated with him once per year using untraceable letters. Dawson claimed the broader system had protected Griffin and had neutralized attempts to expose the full operation. Before leaving, Dawson gave the prison's legal liaison a sealed folder to be delivered to Darius only after Dawson's confirmed death. Dawson said to Darius, "This is my final attempt to set things right." Approximately 1 month later, the facility received notification that Dawson had died of cancer. The sealed folder was passed to Darius. Inside were documents detailing Griffin's role in the insurance fraud operation, including lists of fictitious patient accounts, falsified billing logs, and correspondence between Griffin and several unnamed associates. The folder also contained records of female clinic employees whose reports had been suppressed. At the bottom of the folder was a medical examiner's report regarding Alicia's death. The report listed the cause as an overdose, but included data indicating the presence of an injected substance not prescribed to her. Toxicology findings showed a dosage inconsistent with self-administration. The report also contained the signature of Detective Dawson, authorizing the classification of the case as a closed suicide within 48 hours. Attached to the report was a handwritten note from Dawson. "I did not kill your wife, but I knew who did. I closed the case because the system demanded that witnesses be removed. Alicia intended to give new information to the FBI about what she heard on the night you confronted Derek. She heard him identify the real person in charge. She was eliminated for that reason. Find my brother. He knows who issued the order." At the exit gate, Isaiah, who had been released earlier in 2018, waited for him. Isaiah stated he had located information about Daniel Griffin's current identity and whereabouts. He handed Darius a folder containing preliminary findings and said only, "I found him." After his release in December 2019, Darius Wayne traveled with Isaiah Reed to Maple Ridge Cemetery in Detroit. He stood at Alicia Wayne's grave, aware now that her death had been a homicide disguised as suicide. Isaiah handed him a folder and said he had located Daniel Griffin. According to Isaiah, Griffin lived in a small town in Michigan under an assumed name and worked as a social services assistant. On their way to confront Griffin, Darius and Isaiah met Robert Lynch, a journalist preparing a book about the St. Mary Clinic case. Lynch stated that Alicia's sister had given him Alicia's personal diary. He showed Darius an entry written on the night Marcus Reed died. Alicia wrote that she feared her husband, stating that he had killed a man without asking who he was, and that revenge had overtaken him. She expressed the belief that unless she intervened, Darius might eventually treat her as a threat. Darius read the entry and showed visible emotional reaction for the first time since his conviction. He stated that he now understood Alicia had been trying to stop his escalation, not betray him. Darius and Isaiah located Griffin at a rented duplex in a small Michigan town. Griffin appeared older and physically weakened. He did not attempt to flee. He told Darius he had expected this visit for a decade. Darius presented the dossier created by Dawson and asked Griffin who had ordered Alicia's murder. Griffin reviewed the documents and responded that Dawson had misled Darius. Griffin stated that while he had managed financial operations and insurance fraud, he had never directed violence. He claimed that rapes, intimidation, and murders were organized by Detective Leonard Dawson. Griffin said Dawson used him as a cover, creating the appearance that Griffin was responsible while Dawson maintained a public image consistent with law enforcement credibility. Darius challenged Griffin's statement by referencing Derek Wilson's recorded confession identifying Griffin. Griffin clarified that Wilson had used the surname Griffin, but had not specified which brother. Griffin stated that Dawson had controlled Wilson directly, and that the phone number Wilson contacted was registered under Griffin's name, but was a device Dawson used. Griffin showed documents he had kept, printed email correspondence in which Dawson issued instructions using Griffin's name, phone records showing calls supposedly from Griffin's line that originated from the Detroit Police Department, and photographs of Dawson with Wilson that matched the images Darius had previously discovered. Griffin explained that after Wilson's death, Dawson told him to disappear, asserting that unnamed individuals intended to eliminate all potential witnesses. Dawson arranged false documentation of Griffin's death and secured a new identity for him. Griffin stated that Dawson did this not to protect him but to keep him isolated. Griffin reported receiving one letter annually from Dawson, each reminding him that disclosure of information would result in harm to Griffin's daughter. Darius concluded that Dawson, not Griffin, had ordered Alicia's murder and had directed Wilson's assaults. Griffin then added that Dawson's reported death from cancer was likely staged. He said he had received Dawson's latest annual letter 3 months earlier and believed Dawson was monitoring him for signs of resurfacing. Darius and Isaiah decided to use Griffin to draw Dawson out. They arranged with Robert Lynch to publish a controlled article stating that Griffin had been located and was cooperating with investigators. 1 week later, an unidentified man attempted to kill Griffin. Isaiah subdued the attacker and Darius conducted an interrogation. The man identified the client who hired him. Phone records connected the payment to a number registered in Florida. Darius and Isaiah traveled to Florida and located Dawson living under another identity. He appeared healthy, contradicting his earlier claim of terminal illness. He worked as a consultant for a private security company. When Dawson saw Darius, he attempted to reach for a concealed weapon, but Isaiah intervened and disarmed him. Darius confronted Dawson and referenced Alicia's diary, stating that Dawson had engineered events to push him into uncontrollable retaliation. Instead of killing Dawson, Darius recorded a statement in which Dawson admitted to ordering Derek Wilson's assaults, organizing Alicia Wayne's murder, orchestrating threats against multiple witnesses, and framing his brother Daniel Griffin for aspects of the scheme. Dawson identified participants in the insurance fraud network and described how cases were closed or suppressed using law enforcement authority. Darius and Isaiah delivered Dawson and the recorded confession to an FBI field office. Investigators verified elements of Dawson's account and opened cases against numerous police officers, court officials, and administrative employees. Dawson cooperated further to avoid a capital sentence. He was convicted and received life imprisonment without parole. Through Isaiah's contacts within the correctional system, inmates learned that Dawson had been a police officer who protected individuals involved in sexual assaults. A violent incident occurred during Dawson's custody. Medical reports documented severe spinal trauma resulting in permanent paralysis. Dawson remained conscious but unable to move independently, confined to a long-term medical unit.